As we learned in the previous lesson, both of these blocks of code are functions, both the start and the update. Now a function can call a function within it, and it can define it or call it. So in this case, we're going to define the start function, and we're going to be calling another function called the log. So to call it, we're going to type debug.log, and we can also pass in a parameter. In this case, I'm going to be passing some text, which is also called a string. And I'm just going to type in a classic hello world, close the parenthesis here. I'm going to save it, Command S or Control S, depending on your OS. Okay, and we immediately see some errors up here. If we click on the error, the script will be highlighted within the project window, and it'll tell us what it's having problems with. So it's saying that there's an unexpected symbol with a curly right brace on line 9. So let's address this first. If I double click on it, it will actually take me to that line in MonoDevelop. So Unity does not seem to understand the reasoning behind this right figure brace. So this is because each time we call a function, most of the time, it will require a semicolon at the end to terminate it. So I'm going to type one up, Command S because I'm on Mac, go back to Unity, and we'll see that it compiles correctly. And just for sake of example, let's type in some more functions. We don't have to type in a string. We can type in collections of numbers. And arithmetic operation. Now, anytime we type in a decimal, by the way, in C#, you want to put in an F at the end of that decimal, because it's a floating point, it's a float. And then I'm going to add 2.7. Instead of adding this all on paper, we'll let the computer do the work. And then we can actually combine strings and floating points and arithmetic operations. So let's type in, I have $sign plus 350 F plus, I do want to give it a space after the parenthesis in my bucket. Okay, this is all going to be within the start function, so it's going to be initialized at the moment of the creation of the game object. So I've saved the file. Let me go back into Unity. Okay, we don't see any errors, but if I press play right now, we will actually not see any result. This is because the script needs to be attached to a game object before it can be initialized. Okay, let's play this. Okay, so we see our functions. Here's our hello world. Here are some numbers here, short for pi, and also our statement that I have 350 in my pocket. So now that our script has compiled correctly, I'd like to go back and actually talk about the errors that we had. And there are two types of errors in C#. There's compilation and runtime errors. Compilation errors prevent our script from running in the very beginning, and runtime errors already happen during execution, so they already happen once our game or our app is already running. Now, you want most of the errors to happen during compilation, because otherwise you will run into the risk of shipping buggy products. So we've seen an example of an error where we didn't put a semicolon at the end of this function. So let's try to start a runtime error. So all of these will compile correctly. Now let's type in another function. So as I said, the function can actually nest other functions within it. And now we're going to divide by 0. Now if I actually type in 1 divided by 0, Unity will not let me compile this. We see an error here, division by constant 0. It does not allow it, so we're going to trick this into dividing by 0, so it'll still run the program, but the error will happen during the execution of the program, not in the very beginning, during runtime and not during compilation. For this we're going to be using another function, and this function simply picks the smallest of any two numbers, in this case 0 and 1. So it's going to pick 0. We want to make sure that all of our parentheses are closed in order. Okay, let's save it. And I'm going to take this statement, I'm going to cut and paste it after this predictable runtime error. Okay, we see that we have no errors. I'm going to clear this and test it. Okay, so you see that it did play, but it's also giving us this error, and we don't see our statement appear that I have 350 in my pocket.